pretty nuts.
Well, if you want to push record and I ask you about the music business and you tell me your whole story, we can do that.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I've already hit record, so.
Da, 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 da.
um,
Surprise! Hi
so
everyone.
so basically, this is something I've got to do. So Boom Bip is a hip hop artist, originally from Cincinnati,
Nice.
moved to LA, and he asked me to join his touring band in like 2005 or something, and he is re-releasing the record that came out that year, 2005 or 2006, called Blue Eyed in the Red Room. He's re-releasing it,
Mm.
and he asked me and the two other band members of that tour, which that was the year that we toured with Interpol.
Nice.
And so he's asking me, he's asking us to tell some stories of playing with Boom Bip on tour, and there's a
Mm.
lot of stories. So they are going to be these stories are going to be taken and then edited and chopped up and
Got it.
then turned into a collage that are going to be a part of a new recording or something. I'm not exactly sure. I'm
Okay.
not sure if he even knows what's going to happen yet. But I figured this is a good opportunity to use this system of recording
Yeah.
since you can talk to me and you can ask me questions, and I can tell the story. And then if he just wants my voice, then we have a multi-track. Hold
Yeah.
on 1 second. I need to kill the laundry, which is making noise. Hold on.
Can you hear me wherever you are?
Okay.
I sang Obstacle 1 tonight by Interpol on Smule.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to tell too many stories about touring with Interpol,
I know. I know.
but he asked me to tell at least a couple of good ones, and I know that I have at least one really good one about when we played in Moscow.
Wow.
Geoff, tell me if you can hear background noise at my place,
Let
because
me turn all the way up.
there's some stuff going on in the upstairs that you might be able to hear, and if you can, then we'll have to do this another time. So
Um, no, I mean,
okay. If you hear any while we're talking, then stop me and let me know.
what is it? I mean,
I think yeah, it's somebody cleaning upstairs, so there might be banging around.
it sounds really silent to me.
Okay, good. So
So who are these folks, and where, and how did you find your way to them?
uh well, it's kind of a long story. When Brian Holland from Boom Bip, it's a solo act, really.
Okay.
It's an instrumental hip hop thing on Lex Records. Lex was home to Danger Mouse and
Word.
MF Doom, and a bunch of other awesome artists. There's a record label out of London,
Wow.
and he moved. So Brian of Boom Bip moved to LA and I don't think he knew that many musicians in LA and needed a touring band. And he had been flying his previous, friends from Ohio to LA to tour with him and stuff. At least that's what I think. So he put out a word, put out
Hmm.
a word with some musicians in LA saying that he was looking for a keyboardist and a bass player. And somehow it came around to me, and I said, yeah, I know a keyboardist who's really good, my friend Marty, Marty Soderman, who I had known since high school. And somehow that happened, that they ended up meeting up and Marty became his keyboardist.
Hmm.
When he did need a bass player, it kind of came back around to me, and Marty recommended me as a bass player, and then I went on to kind of play keyboards for Brian as well. So it was just kind of like musicians knowing each other in LA. That's kind of how it happened.
Hmm.
And but yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool for me because that was the first time anybody had asked me to like play in their band, really. So that was kind of cool. And I also didn't. I mean, it was, I'd been playing in punk bands and rock bands, and I had been touring since I was, 16 or younger, and so like that around 2004 2005 was when I started touring with the Mei Shi, and that was becoming my life, was like half the year being on the road, being on tour. And it was both a job that I did that I made very little money doing, but it was a job that I did, and it was also the thing that we would do to get away, and the first couple tours that I had ever been on, they were not parties. I did not drink or anything like that. I was going to do a job, and a job I loved. I was going to perform live. But with Boom Bip, that like, I think that those were the first tours where I was like, oh wow, these can be parties too. Yeah. But anyway, when it comes to the tours, and these are the kind of the stories I want to tell, is so everybody who plays in a band and tours knows that. Oh man, I just feel like when you talk to another musician and you say like, oh man, that tour was hell. When you say something like a sentence like that, musicians are kind of like, ah yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like everything that can go wrong will. And I remember the first night on tour with Brian. This guy I don't really know very well. I know Marty, the keyboardist, I've known for a long time.
And you're
So
playing bass, so it's three of you.
I'm playing bass, and then there's the keyboardist, and then there's also a drummer. So there's actually four of us.
Okay.
And I didn't know the drummer, Hazen, and I didn't know Brian too well. I just met him. We were playing with Interpol.
How long was this tour going to go, and where?
I think it was 3 or 4 weeks, and it was North America. So Canada, and I think Mexico. Actually, I don't think we went to Mexico with Interpol, but it was all North America. So driving across the country, and then into Canada.
Wow.
And also, so Interpol's got a really big tour. They've got all their lights, and they've got like 3 semis for their tour. One just full of they have one bus for their crew, one bus for them, and one semi for all their equipment. So they've got a huge thing. We are touring in a 12-passenger van, maybe a 12-passenger van, and we are getting paid the grand total of $250 a night to open
for
up
the four of you.
for the 4 of us to open
Jesus.
up for Interpol. And as crazy as that sounds, that was the standard going rate for opening bands since the 1960s, and it hasn't changed. At least that's what we were told. Wow. So and we were told to feel lucky that we got to do this. And so we could not afford a tour manager. We couldn't afford anything really. I mean, we could barely afford hotels, and that becomes part of the story. Like we didn't, usually when you're on tour, you will have a tour manager, somebody making sure that everybody at the band gets to where they're going, that they get paid the right amount, that everybody has a place to sleep, everyone has food to eat, and you're getting on the right plane and all that. That's a tour manager's job. But we never really had that with Boom Bip because we never had the money to do that. So we were all handling it ourselves. And I think the first night we were in South San Francisco. We played a show at Bottom of the Hill. It was not with Interpol that night. It was kind of a solo thing. We were playing with Interpol the first night in San Jose the following night at San Jose State, I think, in the big huge auditorium there.
Okay.
But after the show at the Bottom of the Hill, which I guess was a good show, it was a little weird. I think that drummer Hazen got kind of drunk, and I don't know. He was kind of an eccentric guy, the drummer Hazen, and like he had a weird chess playing habit, so he would always disappear like right after sound check to go play chess, and we like literally would not see him until we had like 90 seconds to go on, and we'd be like, where the hell is Hazen? And he'd run in, he'd be like, sorry guys, I was playing chess out in the park. And like that was like every night was like we would lose hazing because he would be out playing chess with like old guys in the street.
Uh-huh.
um
Yeah.
and and like apparently that's what he did to make money. um
Wow.
and that night, so I didn't know Hazen too well. He was kind of eccentric, and like that night was kind of a weird party, but it was also, I think it was like a Monday night too, so it was weird Monday night parties at Bottom of the Hill. But we go to our seedy hotel in South San Francisco, and
Oof.
we get there at like maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. And when you are staying at these seedy hotels, you have a van full of your precious equipment. So the way that you do it was you'd always back the van into a wall or into a bush or into a tree or something, so nobody could open up the back doors to get the equipment up. That was like that was standard operating procedure on these tours. And so we were backing into this kind of tree. And as we're backing in, this is mind you, the first night on tour, we hear pop, the glass in the back shatters. We have broken the window in the back of the van as a tree branch has smashed through while we were backing into it.
Mm.
And it was one of those moments where Marty and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, we're sleeping in the van tonight, aren't we? Well, I think we're going to sleep in the van. And that was the first night. Was
Wow.
basically, I mean, we had a hotel. It was a really small hotel. We could basically share a bathroom, but there was barely enough room for us all to sleep in there anyway. So I volunteered to sleep in the van to just keep it safe, because if somebody
Hmm.
broke into it, I don't know. In retrospect, it's kind of dumb to sleep in a van full of equipment that somebody might steal stuff from, because it's endangering my life. But anyway, Marty ended up staying out there with me, and we got some sleep finally. But because that was the first night of the tour, that was like the foreshadowing of the next several years of Boom Bip tours. Really, because everything that could go wrong would. And you know, most of these tours were like, as many like kind of crazy horror stories I have for Boom Bip tours, I have also some of the greatest memories ever of playing with Boom Bip. I mean, playing on sharing stages with Interpol, sharing stages with Chris Isaac,
Mm.
sharing stages with Griff Reese, and like, you know, whatever, MF Doom, like some things that I will keep with me until I'm very old and be very happy I got to do. And it's all thanks to Brian, really, for taking me along. Um, so that like that Interpol tour was pretty wild and pretty funny. I mean, but the other thing about touring with a band like Interpol is like they have their massive production. We don't have anything, and we have to kind of fight to get, we're like the runts of the pack. We have to like fight to
Mm.
get everything. We have to fight to get a parking space that's like close to the venue.
Mm.
we we would I think that first night we played with them in at San Jose, we actually went to we called their it was something like we didn't get our rider, like we didn't have food or drinks backstage. We were in this like corner of the backstage where like, you know, they keep the empty, like, you know, the empty kegs and stuff like that or whatever. Like, we were really in an uncomfortable spot, so we called our booking agent and said, hey, they don't have a rider, they don't have any, like, they don't even have water for us back here. And then our booking agent called their tour management, their stage management, and said, and basically chewed him out and was like, you got to take care of this band, blah 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 blah. And that was the wrong thing to do, because we were in no position, we had no leverage at all.
Mm.
By complaining about anything just made our lives a lot harder, because then all of a sudden the entire production team of Interpol thinks that we are going to cause problems in their life. And their tightly run ship has now got a rat on board, which is the Boom Bip project. So that was kind of that was the first little kind of thing. That was well, I guess that was the second thing that went wrong on our tour, was that we thought maybe by complaining we could get something our way, but no. Anyway, it's pretty nuts. Um, I have two. I want to talk about this time we went to Moscow. But first, I want to talk about this Chris Isaak show in Amsterdam.
Hmm.
It's not really much of a. It's not like a crazy wild story, but this was the second tour I did with Boom Bip, and we were touring in Europe, and it was maybe a 3 or 4 week tour in Europe, and I was no longer playing bass; I was playing keyboard, and I think I was playing some bass synthesizers and stuff. We weren't playing as a live band anymore; we were playing as a live, almost like more of a DJ set, like a live PA sort of thing, where we're all playing keyboards and sequencers on stage. We even have these cool uniforms that are like made out of paper suits with flashy like electroluminescent wire underneath. It was pretty neat. It was very like kind of retro 80s. Um, and well, like any Boom Bip tour, when we fly from LA to Heathrow in London, and like even that flight, I remember being a little stressful. Like when we got off the plane in Heathrow and we had to fly to Schiphol, which is the airport in Amsterdam, there was something like we weren't even like we were allowed 2 carry-ons on the flight to London, but we were only allowed 1 carry-on the flight to
Mm.
Amsterdam. So we like literally had to throw away half our stuff because we like they just
Wow.
wouldn't let us on. So I remember scrambling to like fit stuff into bags that couldn't fit and then throw out bags and all this stuff. And we get to Amsterdam, and then it turns out none of our equipment made it over from London. Like didn't make it on the flight. Like none of our keyboards, none of our gear, none of our instruments or anything. And we're like, how do we even play? And this is the first night of the tour, and we're opening up for Chris Isaak. And Chris
Wow.
Isaak, uh, Chris Isaak of Wicked Game, right? This is like,
Yeah, oh, mhm.
okay. First of all, it's kind of weird that we're playing with Chris Isaak. We are this kind of electronic hip hop or like electronic, disco thing, and we are playing a show with Chris Isaak in Amsterdam. I don't exactly know how we got booked on this show because it was definitely out of place. But yeah, we were just kind of like, I don't know, this could be kind of cool. Who knows? It's in this big auditorium. But anyway, so we find out that we have no equipment at all, and we have to figure out a way to make the show happen. And that was the foreshadowing for this entire tour too. What we ended up doing is I think we had one. We had. I don't exactly remember, so this is probably going to end up wrong, but it's still going to make for a good story. Well, I think we had one case of equipment. We had enough to make it look like we could cover the stage with equipment, but I don't think we had any cables or anything. So it would be this thing where we would actually probably just play the CD and make it look like we were performing on stage.
Wow.
But we that was the only thing that we could do. So it was like we don't have any cables. We just have to set up and fake it basically.
Jeez.
Um, and I remember our driver, we didn't have a tour manager, but we had a driver because we weren't going to try to drive through Europe. And our driver offered to like go back to the airport and like see if our equipment was there and try to get it back to us before the show. I think he actually was able to get some of our equipment back before we finally went on, but the whole sound check and everything. And a sound check is something that you do like hours before the show. You do the sound check at like 2 to 4 p.m. for the show that you're going to play at midnight. And you set up and you have all your equipment and it's all ready to go. You've checked all your vocals, you've checked everything. That's like basically the thing that you do to make sure everything is going to sound right when you go on, and you don't have to test anything before you go on set. Well, we weren't able to do that actually. We had to just plug in an MP3 player at the time, CD player, right, Discman, and just, or it was probably a laptop with Ableton Live, just hitting play on that and then dancing around, pretending, twisting knobs and moving faders and banging pots and pans on stage. Uh, but but yeah, that that was kind of insane. The
Wow.
I'm pretty sure that it was only a couple days later on that tour that we were in Belgium. We played a great show in Belgium, And the following night, we were playing in Rome. Now, I'm pretty sure that Marty is going to tell the story too, but I'll just tell it to you, Geoff, because it's a pretty funny story. But we 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 wake up in the morning and Marty can't find his passport. Like we have to get to the airport in Belgium. We have to get to the airport because we have a flight leaving for Rome, and Marty can't find his passport. So we're scrambling to find his passport, and then as we're leaving, we're like, well, Marty, we can't find your passport, so we have to go to the airport and beg them to let us on a plane or something. I don't know. We were like scrambling. We didn't know what to do. And then so like I grab Marty's suitcase and I pull it off the table, and sure enough, his passport is underneath the suitcase. So we found it. We just killed like half an hour that we need to get to the airport. So now we're in a huge rush to get to the airport. We get to the airport in Brussels, and the airport is closed. Like no planes coming and going. It's closed. Not much of an explanation. Very hard to get any information because, I mean, there are lots of people who speak English, but most people are frantically trying to figure out their travel stuff, and they're not speaking English. So a lot of people are shouting each other in French and in Dutch, and we have to figure out what the hell's going on. And it turns out they had closed the airport because of some fires, and like the fire department was there to deal with the issue. But until then, no flights could leave. We still had a show to play in Rome. So we have to figure out how to get to the next closest airport. The next closest airport is Schiphol in Amsterdam. So we have to take a train to. We have to get a train because we didn't have a driver at this point. We had to get a train from Brussels to Amsterdam, and then we had to figure out how to get a flight from Amsterdam to Rome in time for our sound check and then our show. Okay, cool, except that we have like 4 huge cases full of equipment that we can barely carry. Like we can't carry. Like we have to make multiple trips. Like we have to we have to make multiple trips within sight so that people don't steal our stuff. You know, we have to carry it halfway and then walk back and get more, and then carry it halfway and go back get more. And this time we weren't touring with a drummer. We didn't have Hazen. It was just me and Marty and Brian's girlfriend at the time, who was doing our merch, Allie, who is now his wife. She was with us too, and Allie is sick. She's not feeling too well, right? So Marty, who's feeling kind of crazy because he just spent an hour looking for his passport and couldn't find it. We're at an airport that's closed trying to get to Amsterdam, and we're trying to carry about 600 pounds worth of equipment, and one of us is sick and can't really do much at all. And we get onto the train, finally. We pull into Amsterdam, Schiphol Airport, and it's so crowded that people start rushing on the train. Brian and Allie get off the train as people start rushing on, and the doors close before me and Marty could get off the train. And the train continues going towards the next station. And Marty and I are like, crap, what the hell do we do now? We're still on the train. We couldn't get our equipment off. There was no way for us to get through the crowd. So we're stuck on this train. And we also don't have cell phones that work at this time. When we're in Europe, we don't have iPhones, we don't have cell phones, we don't have cell phone service. So it's like, uh-oh, like we can't even tell Brian where we're going or if we're going to get back. And I remember looking over at Marty and thinking, like, I think we should just live on this train. We should just give up and just call this home. And like, that should be it. Somebody whispers into my ear he says, get off at the next stop, get on the train across the tracks, don't talk to anybody, don't pay anything, just do it, you'll get back to the airport. And so we scramble to steal a spot on the train going in the opposite direction. We get there, we get off the train just barely in time to catch Brian and Ellie, who were about to leave right then. They were like, well, we don't know what to do, we still have to get to Rome, so let's go. Marty and Geoff will find a way to get there. So we get off. We're there. We finally get on a plane that gets us to Rome. We get to Rome way too late. We don't have time to sound check. And again, because we can't sound check, we can't set up our equipment.
Mm.
So we end up just kind of throwing everything out and hitting play on the CD player and dancing around like we're pretending that we're playing. But more or less, that's what happened. I remember that night we couldn't do our typical set because we were so late and it was so difficult getting there. But that story doesn't really compare to what happened in Moscow. Oh man. Hold on, let me drink some water.
They were about to leave. Wow.
Well, it's like one
That's
of those things where it's
yeah. How long
like
can they really wait?
well, like what are they going to do? Like they have no idea where we are, where we're going. Like at this point we like none of us have a whole lot of faith in each other too. Like
Mm.
I love Marty, but he had just lost his passport. So it's kind of like what's the chance that we're going to make it back to the airport on our own in time? Like are they just going to wait there? Like what, you know?
Right.
It's kind of like, well, we all know we're going to Rome, so see you in Rome. I don't know. Uh, yeah, yeah, totally. So, so these tours are so fun. These tours in Europe. I'll stop. Do a little break where I talk about how fun tours are in Europe. When you tour in the U.S., you know you're lucky if they give you a 6 pack of beer backstage. You're lucky if like they offer to get you some takeout from down the street. You're lucky if you get $250 opening for Interpol. But in Europe, they really value live performance and art, and there is all kinds of hospitality and accommodation for touring bands. Like just the warmth and respect you get for walking in with equipment. They're just like, "Oh yes, the band is here. Like we have
Hmm.
this suite for you." And well, a lot of times we'd be playing in these um, these kind of community centers that were like basically converted warehouses that were now home to like teenagers after school to like play foosball and drink beer. That's what teenagers do in Germany is they
Hmm.
play foosball and drink beer. Um, and like when you show up there's like a spread of food and crackers and cheese and fruit and so like Europe is my favorite place to tour because the hospitality, the people are nice. People come out to see your band even though I have no idea who you are. They're excited. They're just there for a good time. They're there for a good time for so long. I don't know what it's going to be like post pandemic in the US, but for a long time the US people didn't go out just because they want to have a good time. People would go out so that they could judge other people and so
Hmm.
that they could show how great they are. And it's like you would probably wouldn't go to see a band you didn't know unless your friend was taking you out. But I
Hmm.
find that in Europe, like there's more likely to be like, oh yeah, I'm going out. I heard there's a band. I heard they're from the US. Like, yeah. So the vibe is a lot better. So we were playing this festival in Moscow. I'm pretty sure this is in November. So getting pretty cold in Russia. This was the farthest we were going on the tour. In fact, we weren't playing any other than Moscow. We didn't play farther east than Berlin, I think. So we fly from Berlin to Moscow, and we and it's like there's a lot of when you fly into Moscow in the mid 2000s. I actually studied Russian when I was in college, and
Mm.
I was told like there's a couple of things when you're flying into Moscow you need to be careful of. Like one, like um, if you're flying with a lot of like equipment, you got to be careful because they are very careful about the equipment they let into their country from the U.S. So as a musician carrying cases and cases full of not just musical instruments but like weird sequencers and DJ equipment and keyboards and stuff with knobs and switches and lights and wires and stuff like that looked very suspicious. And then the other thing that I was told by my Russian teachers was get ready to drink alcohol. Get ready to drink alcohol because if you don't drink alcohol, they're pretty much going to think that they're not going to trust you. You're not
Hmm.
going to make any friends there. If you don't drink vodka, you're going to have a hard time. And I had pretty much just started drinking. I was pretty brand new to drinking, just like a couple years. And we so I had this kind of expectation for what Russia was going to be. Like they were going to give us a hard time for our equipment, and then they were going to force us to drink. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, and so we fly from Berlin to Moscow, and we get off the plane, and man, it's been a while. It's been a while, but this is what happened. We got off the plane, and then we're going through customs, and there's like a holdup, and I can't figure out. We don't know what's going on. They're like I think Brian and Allie are at the customs booth, and there's like kind of people starting to circle around there,
Oh
and then
boy.
there's some other officials coming looking, and then Brian turns around to me and he says, "There's a typo on Allie's passport. It's not her passport that there's a typo. There's a typo on the visa that we applied for. So when you go to Moscow, you have to apply for a visa to be there, and our visa was a 2-day visa to play a music performance. Well, there was a typo on that. One of the dates was wrong on Allie's passport. And they didn't like that. That we had a lot of equipment and there was a typo. Our one of our passports didn't match. Probably looks suspect. Are these even real visas? Are they fake? You know. Well, we'll figure it out. But in the meantime, we're gonna lock you guys in this windowless room over here for
Wow.
hours. So we get detained at the Moscow airport. They put us into this room, and they basically they take us in there. They close the door. They lock the door. There's no windows. I think there's only 2 places to sit. Marty and I are sitting on the floor, and we're there for what seems like hours. I don't know if it was actually hours, but it definitely seemed like a long time because when you don't have a cell phone and you're in a foreign country like Moscow, and they leave you in a room, and it doesn't matter how many times you bang on the door, nobody comes to open it. It feels like you're there for a really, really long time.
Wow.
And we we're panicking. We don't know what's going on. Part of us is kind of like just sort of comatose, like they can't leave us here forever. I guess something will happen. And this is the craziest thing that happens, right? After a while of waiting there, I think Brian actually had a cell phone and he was trying to get service or something, but it wasn't working. So after a while of sitting there and starting to give up, this the door opens and this young kid, maybe like 17 years old, pops his head in and he's like, guys, I can change your passport. Come with me, but you have to hurry. You have to hurry. So we're like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Like, so we go out the door. We're carrying our equipment,
Oh
our
my
carry-on
God.
stuff. Not all of our equipment, but our carry-on stuff. We're going through. We're going back behind security. We're going through another security line. We have to go through another X-ray spot. This kid is saying, "No, just let these guys through. Let them come through." We're going through like basically, the backstage of the airport or whatever. And this kid takes us into this hallway that connects to an office. And he says, "Okay, everybody get into this room. Put all your stuff in this room." And he looks at us and he says, "Okay, I'm going to talk to my boss. Uh, I'm going to see if we can change your passports. Don't leave this room." And then he walks into the office next, and the office next to us is covered with like leather furniture. It's got like a big, huge wooden desk with a guy who's bald and like got a mustache sitting behind it. And he's got like a big picture of an old painting of an old Russian dude above his desk that kind of looked exactly like him. And
Hmm.
and the kid walks up to him and talks to him. We can't hear what he's saying. I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to remember my college Russian.
Hmm.
And they're like talking and they talk back and forth, back and forth. Finally, the kid comes back to us and he says, "I can change your passport for $20 each. Do you accept this?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, sure. Like, just change our passport. Here's the money." Except that we don't have US dollars. We only have euros because we were traveling through Europe. So we only have euros. And we pull out euros and we're like, "We only have euros. It's okay. It's worth the same. It's equivalent." And he looks at us and he kind of, grimaces and he's like, "We can only take US dollars." And we're like, "This is all we have." And he said, "Okay, let me go talk to my boss and see what we can do." So he goes back
Wow.
into the room. goes back up to his boss, and then comes back to us and he says, "Okay, we will accept 20 euros, but the receipt will say 20 US dollars. The receipt, for the bribe, I guess, to get into the country." So we're like, sure, like let us in. This is fine. So finally, we give him the 20 euros. He prints out a receipt, and I don't really know what the receipt's for. I mean, like, the weird thing is that there's, I guess, there's just a total underground currency in Moscow, which is the US dollar. It makes sense. But so they give us this receipt. They shuffle us out of the airport, onto the street, and there is our tour manager person, our tour guide, the person who is responsible for getting us to the venue. She's outside jumping up and down, going, "I have your equipment! I have your equipment! Come! We're late! We're late! We're late!" And we're like kind of flustered. We're just happy to be out of the airport. It's freezing cold in Moscow, and yeah, and our venue support is there to help us get. We go up to her and we're like, "Oh, great, you got our equipment." She's like, "We're in a hurry. We got to get there fast." And we're like, "Where's the car?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't have a car." Well, we don't do that here in, like, I don't have a car in Moscow. We just kind of wave at the cars until one pulls over. And you mean like hitchhike? Yeah, like hitchhike. We hitchhike in Moscow, but we have like 6 cases of heavy equipment. How are we going to fit it into a car? And she's like, "We'll figure it out." So we go out to the street, we start waving at cars until one pulls over. She sticks her head in, negotiates a price to get us to our venue. And it's a little tiny, like, hatchback, like Yugo thing, right? And we have to shove all our equipment back of it. There's 6 of us in this little car. We cram into the back of it, and the driver is so excited that we're from America that he's like not even looking at the road. He's like kind of staring at us the entire time from the back seat. And in Moscow is like one of those European cities that, like, they like drive on the sidewalks and stuff like that. If you, like, there's really no traffic control. There's no
Wow.
like they just, it's kind of insane. All over Europe is like that too. In Rome, it's the same way. It's like, just, if there's room next to the car, then you just take it or whatever. So this guy's driving us at breakneck speed towards this venue, and I don't know if they open the vodka here or on the next car, but we get to the venue, we unload our stuff, and um and and it's the weirdest venue. There's like a bunch of like normal kind of indie rock looking kids around. Like there's a bunch of like just like, yeah, just normal kids. Like they look like they could be American, but they're Russian. And then there's like women in bikinis walking around in high heels. And it's like really kind of strange. Like, what's the deal with the girls in bikinis? I remember asking somebody at the show, like, what's the deal with the bikini girls? And someone says, "Oh, they're pretty much at every show. It's sponsored by Playboy." So these shows are
Wow.
sponsored by Playboy, and that, they're giving out cigarettes and stuff like that. Like girls in bikinis giving out cigarettes to indie rock kids at this festival. That was the weirdest thing. I mean, we had a room backstage, and the room backstage had like a stack of ham and cheese sandwiches and nothing else. And then there was a room next door to us that was full of like girls in bikinis walking in and out of it. And that was the show. That was the show in Moscow. It was pretty interesting in Moscow though, because after we did our sound check, like the the promoter of the show, or I don't know how it works, but that night we got this little suite of apartments, and it wasn't like we just got, this is how the hospitality works in Moscow. Like, it wasn't that we just got a nice apartment to stay in. It wasn't just that we got, a backstage with ham sandwiches or whatever, but somehow they even had it sorted out that we would have friends for the evening. Like we went back to our apartment.
Friends.
Yeah, like these kind of like instant instant friends. Like basically they had people, there were like young people our age who were supposed to hang out with us for the night. Like
Huh.
like like we went back to our hotel after the show. We went back to our place, and then these just add water friends were like, we're gonna take you to our childhood park, and we're gonna drink vodka on the swings because that's what we do. And it's like, okay, so all of a sudden, me and Marty are along for the ride. I think Brian and Allie's still really, really sick, so I think they stay in. But Marty and I go out to hang out with these Russian best friends that we've never met before, and we pile into another hitchhike car, and like we are literally pouring Russian standard vodka in the car and passing it back and forth. Like there's no rules about drinking and driving, no laws about drinking and driving there. So we're just pouring shots on our way to wherever we're going. We end up at a park, like a city park in Moscow on swings, drinking with these kids. And now I know what my teachers were talking about when they said that when you are in Moscow, you have to drink because that's how you make friends. Because we ended up making some pretty cool friends. And not only did we make friends that night, but fast forward like 2 years, and that girl waiting for us outside the airport. Well, I'm still friends with her, Anya. I'm still friends with her to this day. But 2 years later, she emails me and she says, I have a couple friends who are coming to LA from Moscow. Would you, tell them where to go? Would you hang out with them? So I actually, like, I drove out to meet two random strangers in LA from Moscow because this mutual friend of ours sent me to. And I bring them back and they take them to a show at the Smell. I take them to a show at the Troubadour and introduce them to all my friends. And it was just kind of so cool how the small world works when you start making friends like that. These kids who came out from Moscow, it was a guy and a girl, boyfriend and girlfriend, who came out to LA. And I remember asking them, like, yeah, so now you're in LA, like what do you want to do while you're here? They look at each other and they go, I think we want to go to Florida. You want to go to Florida? You know that Florida's on the other side of the country, right? And they're like, yeah, but your country's small. Your country's small compared to Russia. We're like, but how are you going to get there? Oh, well, we'll hitchhike, of course.
Oh my gosh.
These kids actually ended up hitchhiking all the way to Florida. They sent me an email from Florida that said, yeah, we met a trucker who took us the entire way. This is insane. It's pretty funny. Anyway, so, oh man, crazy times. Hopefully some of this is useful for Brian's project, but any questions?
Wow. So you carried all of your equipment from that small room in the Moscow airport through like the back channel of that airport.
We didn't have all of our equipment because our equipment was like being unloaded from the plane. But
Right.
we had a lot of stuff with us because we couldn't check all of the stuff, and a lot of the stuff was really kind of
Okay, yeah.
fragile, so we had to carry it with us. But that mad dash through the Moscow airport was crazy because, like, I mean, like they weren't like they were we were bypassing metal detectors and stuff like
Mhm.
X-ray machines. I
Mhm.
remember like just getting special treatment to get through there because this kid had like a magic pass.
Mhm.
And of course, like we were in fight or flight too. We like, this could be our only chance to get out. And we don't know if this kid is like breaking us out illegally
Mhm.
or what.
Mhm. You didn't know who that kid was, really.
I didn't know who that kid was. He said that he could help us change our passports, and that was the thing that we needed to do. And I don't know. It's just weird when you go to Moscow, like everything has to be perfect. It's like your visa has to be perfect. If there's a typo on it, then that's a problem. And their bureaucracy is so crazy that it's not just a matter of saying, oh well, we'll just print you a new one right now. No, it's got to like go through the entire system again. And yeah, Moscow is kind of amazing. We were only there for 2 nights, but I remember like even just driving down the street, like seeing some of like the crazy like techno clubs and stuff like that.
Mm.
Like the like for some reason, like I guess maybe it was like movies in the 80s and 90s, but when I thought of like a club in Moscow, it would be this like semi glamour goth techno, uh, techno nightclub, made of ice crystals or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Like some like extremely glammy, dark vampire thing, and like they had those there. They were everywhere.
Hmm.
Like those existed. Yeah, and so yeah, that was pretty interesting. The seeing the terrible state of the country though was pretty sad. I mean, like we don't in the U.S. we don't really in the Bay Area we do very little to take care of the homeless people here besides give them a place to set up their camp. But in Moscow, I remember there were people that were just they were obviously dying on the street, like right
Wow.
outside, and young people too. Like that person has open sores; they're not going to live, and it's below zero. I mean, it was pretty
Whoa.
bleak, pretty bleak.
Wow.
So
I mean,
a lot of fun being on tour with Boom Bip.
do you say that it was a festival in Moscow?
Yes, it was a festival in Moscow. It was like an indoor festival. It was like there were multiple rooms, and we
Hmm.
were playing with. I don't remember who. I don't think it was Boards of Canada, but it was somebody like
Oh,
Boards of
nice.
Canada. Um,
Nice.
Boards of Canada was super elusive, and I don't think that
Oh
they were there, but it
man,
was something like
I
that.
love their
Yeah,
music.
yeah. I don't honestly. I don't remember who played that night. A lot of the nights kind of blur together, especially on those tours because I didn't know a lot of the artists that we were performing with, and not in Europe at least. Mm.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember on that tour we were playing a couple covers. We were playing, well, we played an electronic cover of "Steppin' Out" by Joe Jackson, which was kind of cool because that totally sounds like a techno song when you hear it, the techno version, but it's also like Joe Jackson playing a piano. Um, so it was just kind of cool whenever we'd start playing that melody. So there'd be like two kids in the back of the room would be like, "Yeah, I know this song,"
hmm.
or yeah. But that entire tour, we were performing as a we were we were performing as like DJs basically. We were making dance music. We expected people
Hmm.
to dance. Which the previous tour, the one with Interpol, we were playing. I was playing bass guitar. Brian was playing guitar. Marty was playing keyboard, and we had a drummer. So it was like a live band experience, which we didn't really expect people to dance to. It was more of a cerebral hip hop thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, I had one more question. When you, I mean, the part where the Interpol tour managers thought you guys were complaining, it didn't sound like your agenda was to complain. So first, correct me if I'm wrong there. But then also, I mean, you were on tour with them. Did you say for 4 weeks?
It was like 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think it
if
was.
you make enemies with coworkers like that so early in an engagement, how do you rectify that? And in this case, did you rectify it?
Yeah, yeah. So that when we complained to our tour manager, and the tour manager called the tour manager for Interpol, and like I remember the stage manager for Interpol walking into our dressing room, closing the door, coming in, without asking, just walks in, closes the door, sits down. And he's like, "We need to have a talk." And he's like, "Let me tell you how this is going to work. We were on the tight ship here. Like, like if you need something, you got to talk to me or one of my crew." They basically just totally schooled us and put us in our place. And from then on, we were like, "Oh shit, man! Did we just like jinx our entire tour? Did we just ruin our entire tour?" By the end of the tour, we were really good friends with those guys.
Hmm.
Um, but it was like I think it was one of those things where like we had no leverage. Like there was nothing we could do. So it was very much like an alpha dog situation where they
Hmm.
had to just kind of come in and let us know, no, this is how it works. And as long as we fall in line with the way that they do things, then
Mm-hmm.
we will get the special treatment. But And then by the end of the tour, they were like leaving us a place to park our van. They were making sure that we
Mm,
got food and alcohol and stuff like that. But but yeah, it was kind of weird. It was definitely like yeah, it was like we tried to bark and they were like, "Oh no, we're
mm-hmm,
gonna you're actually the runt."
mm-hmm,
And and then we yeah, no, I think by the end their entire crew, we ended up becoming better friends with their crew than with Interpol themselves.
mm-hmm.
Like because we would see them more. Like we would like Interpol were I mean they were rock stars, you know, they were an elite rock band at the time. This is 2006 Interpol. Like they had everything and they knew it, and so like chances are we were going to be going to the bar with the roadies and you know Tex um, m- more likely than partying with Interpol.
Yeah.
But you know, by the end, at least that's how it starts out. By the end, we were all kind of hanging out because when you live on the road, like that's who you live with. Those are your roommates, basically.
Mm.
You end up knowing all those guys by the end. I've made so many good friends with people I've toured with who weren't necessarily in the other bands. The Meishi did a tour with the band The Germs that reunited. So that's
Mm.
Pat Smear, who now is in the Foo Fighters, and and they were the Germs were a punk band in the early '80s that were only around for about a few years before their singer um, died of a drug overdose or committed suicide, uh, and they were making a movie about the Germs, or there was a movie being made about the Germs, and so they decided to do a tour with the original band with the actor who was playing Darby Crash
Hmm.
in the movie. So it was like this weird kind of thing where it was the original band except a different singer, but the singer looked exactly like the original singer. And that was an interesting tour because not only did you know, we became friends with all of the original Germs, um, but like their crew was hilarious. Their crew was amazing.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I'm still friends with everybody who was part of their crew. And all the hijinks that goes on in the tour. We were stealing each other's gear, and we were stealing each other's alcohol. And a tour is kind of like a camp. It's like a summer camp that just
Hmm.
goes around the country, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah, totally. I haven't actually done that much traveling outside of playing music. It's one of those things where like I never really like saved up money to travel because I always just assumed I was going to be doing it for music.
Hmm.
And the one of the cool things about traveling as a musician, especially as a B-rate musician, like I was, not like you know, a headlining act. One of the cool things about traveling and going around the world is you tend to meet people who like live in these places, right? Of course, but you meet people who live in these places. You meet a lot of people like if it's outside of the US, you meet a lot of people who have no interest in coming to the US and have never been to the US, and they
Hmm.
don't really care about the fact that you're American. They just like the music or whatever. And so
Huh.
you meet like everyday people living their lives in other countries. That these are people that you tend not to meet when you are just traveling as a tourist places. Like you don't crash on the floor of somebody's house when you're, you know,
Hmm.
when you're a tourist in somewhere. So it's interesting to travel the world as a touring musician because you get a different slice of life. You like actually get to see what locals do on a weekend or a weekday, and that's really cool.
Yeah, couch surfing was always how I preferred to do long road trips, to like meet people who are living in the place, and then like they'll take you out to meet their friends and show you cool places. Yeah, a tourist. I don't think I've ever really been one. I have no interest in that. I mean,
Yeah,
you see the sights. I don't know. Yeah, it's like I like being with people in a new area and
yeah,
seeing how
totally.
they live.
Well, when you're like the with the Mei Shi, I mean, we were kind of the ultimate couch surfers in a way, because like we'd be on stage and we'd be like, all right, here's our last song. Does anybody have a floor we can crash on tonight?
That's awesome.
And it would be like, yeah, you can stay at my place. Oh, who,
That's
you with the
awesome.
blonde hair in the back? Okay, cool. Like,
That's
and so
awesome.
we'd often be sleeping on the floor at people's places that we didn't
Wow.
know. And in retrospect, man, we stayed in some pretty creepy places. I mean, like I have like I remember staying in this one guy's house in like it was in like Michigan or some like a suburb of Michigan or something, and it turns out he's got a weird um he has a weird uh art where he does like taxidermy, but he like makes designs out of animal bones that have been preserved and frames them and puts them on his
Hmm.
wall. I remember like, wow, we're staying in this
That's cool.
weird room. It is cool. Yeah, you yeah, you get to meet all kinds of people. We were playing in I think it was we played in like Dublin. And we played in Dublin and we stayed at this guy's house. He called himself Lemmy, like Motorhead Lemmy, and he
Mm-hmm.
looked like Lemmy from Motorhead. Um, and we're like, man, should we stay at this hotel that's going to cost us a lot of money, or should we stay with Lemmy? So we stayed with Lemmy, and he stayed at Lemmy's flat, where like basically, it's basically he seemed like a guy who was just obsessed with Motorhead so much that he even started to look like Motorhead, and since we were in Dublin, I mean, why not?
Hmm.
Yeah, some crazy experiences. All right. Well, I think I've talked enough about tour. Hopefully, this is going to be good. I had fun at
Yeah.
least, and I think maybe we can publish this if you
I think,
if
yeah,
you
no,
yeah.
this is an art talk. Yeah.
This
This
is an art
is,
talk. Yeah.
well, and it reminds me of something you said probably in like, I mean, before we even did this project, it's a quote it was from your text messages, and I copy pasted it into my notes because it was so good, and I just reread it like the other day. I almost texted it to you again, where I think you said like, spend all your money, work with everyone, um, something else, but those really stuck with me, and it's like you're telling me these stories right now, and it's like
Mm.
I don't want to not have these later because I've learned we've got nothing but time for reminiscing. Right? You've helped me see through our project here together that like the older one gets, the more you can just talk about stuff and listen to stuff. But it's like it takes guts to go sleep on a floor to go
Right.
say yo and like to not know where you're staying tonight. It's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, we didn't have iPhones, so like we couldn't plan anything in advance. It's kind of crazy. Like it's crazy. I can't imagine how anybody would. I don't know how we did it in the first place. Yeah, but
Well, you have to trust people.
yeah, and you have to have kind of nothing to lose too. Yeah. And at the time, I don't even think that I was thinking of it like, oh, this is a great adventure. I was just thinking of it as like, this is what I do. This is it. This is me. And I remember even when I got asked to tour with Boom Bip, I remember my immediate answer wasn't like, yes, please take me with you. I remember thinking, is this what I want to do? I don't do it. Like, it's not, it's not the music I want to focus on, even though I like it. But it's crazy that I even questioned whether I should do it. Of course. And whenever I hear of like one of my, nieces getting to do something cool like that, I'm like, go do it. Doesn't matter how much money it
Yeah.
costs. Just do it. And I regret that I didn't do more of these tours and stuff. The last one I did was in Japan in 2016. And I think that it's weird because, I was 36 when I did that tour, and yeah, we were basically sleeping on people's floors again, and
Nice.
and and I did it kind of knowing that it was from my memory. I think
Hmm.
that was really the reason that I did it, thinking that this might be the last tour I get to do. I don't know, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason why it should be the last one, but
Mick Jagger's out there. Paul McCartney's out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do think I'm really optimistic about the future of art and music because I feel like the internet has really not just leveled the playing field, but it's also meant that there isn't as much judgment. There's just as much judgment as there ever was before, but I think that it's easier to find your audience, whatever it is. And like when I was in my 20s, and if you would have asked me what I would be doing when I was 50 or 60 years old, I would not have said playing in a band and touring. But somehow I think the internet is a tool that is going to make it so that people can still do that. Like, yeah, I don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
explain why I believe that. Really, I just think like now age doesn't really matter anymore because everybody is exposed to everything. It only mattered superficially in the past anyway. Like,
Well, I think where age matters, and I mean, crowdfunding is interesting. I mean, it's. I think the older you get, the more your options narrow, and it's just like I'm in this to the death, and I am going to do this hell or high water. I don't care what it costs or how many I might have left in me or not. I'm going to go do this. Now, that kind of passion and commitment is infectious, and people are hungry for it. Yeah, you can find the people who want to finance you following your dreams. I think you just
yeah,
have to. I think you just have to believe in them, and it's like if because it takes asking, and it takes never turning off from knowing you need people's help.
yeah,
And but that's who you do it for, right? It's like the need to make money to finance it to do it turns you into a person who actually does it for the people who will pay you to do it.
yeah. I think that's the thing. Is like in the '90s and in the mid 2000s or in the aughts, like in order to do something like make music, you really had to do it for your local audience, for your friends, for the people around you. And if you didn't make something that those people liked, then it was kind of game over right there. Like it was really hard to get any further than that. And so if you were the wrong thing, including the wrong age, then it was a lot harder. It would be a lot harder
Mm-hmm.
to be 45 years old in the scene that I was in when I was 25 or whatever.
Right.
But I feel like now, because the internet makes exposure universal, it's kind of like people don't really care if the music is good. If they like the music, then
Yeah.
they like the music. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're part of the right scene or if you're the right age or whatever. Now, maybe that's just me hoping as I get older. I don't know. um,
Well, I think
but
there also aren't that many haters because there's so much stuff to hate, right? Where I think as you described it a minute ago, like people who don't like your stuff, it's like people just won't stick around. And like they also can put their vitriol on other things. There's so
mhm.
many places to find something to disagree with or not like. And so they're not going to stick around at yours. If they have no need to sting you, they won't.
Yeah,
Now
that's true.
I think once you start getting to that next level of success, then people think they know what you're about and they'll come at you and criticize you and think you don't deserve it or that crap. But I don't know. I as long as you're more interested in the craft and being good and being something else you weren't yesterday, if you just focus on you, haters are just background white noise.
Yeah. Well, for a long time, haters were, I mean, detrimental in some ways, or at least you'd think. As a young person, I thought that I thought that haters were a bad thing, and then as I get older, I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand them.
They keep you sharp. I mean, I think about athletes a lot, and it's like you love the game for sure, and it's like people push you to be better, right? Like my friend published something online yesterday, and I A tore it apart, and B published four things today because it's like I want to be at the top of my game, and it's like when someone does something good, it's like shit, I should have done that. Why didn't I do that? And it's like I think iron sharpens iron. Um,
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
ultimately it's for love of the game, and yeah, for the next generation who are coming up, be who you needed when you were younger, and it's like that game never ends. That you can do till you're 70.
Oh yeah, man. I, I actually I love that. That makes me feel really good as a teacher. Like I, I meet a lot of students, and most of them. I mean, I meet a lot of students that every once in a while I meet one that I'm like, oh man, this is a super talented person who loves what they're doing and they're going to go really far. And I feel so fortunate that I get to encourage that now. That's I'm lucky as a
Mm-hmm.
teacher because, you know, because I didn't have that when I was younger, really. Not really. I didn't have somebody to say, hey, what you're doing is really cool. Go, 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 go. I felt like everything was an
Yeah.
uphill battle at the time. But
Yeah, that's one thing that, like, when I read interviews with writers who really made it, it's like they realize, what you need when you're younger is it's like no one can really help you because you're gonna have to do it all yourself.
uh-huh.
But you need someone to look at you and tell you the effort is real, what you're doing
Yeah.
is real,
Yeah,
and I
totally.
see you, and I like what you're saying. Then of course you say, well, do you have any idea how you're going to make a living?
Well,
Because
that's what I needed when I was younger. Somebody to ask me how I was going to make a living.
well, and this is advice I got from an older photographer. He was telling me a story maybe of someone else who told him it's like yeah, like I see your work and it's good and it'll get better, but do you have any idea how you're going to support yourself and keep going?
No.
And I mean, everyone answers that in their own way. I mean, when there's a will to survive, you will do it, and that I think becomes your life. Um, yeah, you figure out your own art of survival, and it's a dance that never ends. Um,
Those are nice words. Nice, meaningful words. Well, I should probably get going, but this has
okay.
been awesome. Thanks for listening to me tell
Dude,
my stories.
absolutely. This was so good. Look what we can do when we have a point to our episode. And you set expectations where I mostly listen. Imagine what is possible if I shut up.
Well, maybe next time you can tell me a story.
I'll think about what I have to say. I often think I don't really write stories. I write ideas. Um,
Everything I've ever written is a story. Yeah.
all right, food for thought.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.